Hi, you're listening to the Happy Heart podcast. My name is Isabel Thottam, and I am the owner and baker of Heart Kona, which was a healthy food restaurant in Kealakekua, Hawai'i Island. In this podcast, I'll be sharing interviews and stories from my time running the cafe. I'll share advice for future cafe owners, future business owners, small business owners, and also just give advice to people who want to pursue a dream of theirs. Owning this cafe truly was a dream come true for me. I'm so grateful for the experience. Even though I have carried a lot of debt with it, this has been this is my creative way of trying to pay that off. So I'll be sharing stories, videos, and I'll be putting out a recipe book in May that you'll be able to download digitally so you can learn how to make all of the recipes that were in my cafe. If you want to pre-order that, you can go ahead and send a Venmo to at happyheart-kona of $10. And please be sure to put your email address in the comment section so that I know where to send that book to you when it's available. For those of you who don't know my story, I started a cafe back in the beginning of the pandemic, although I had pretty much been dreaming about doing this cafe for, I want to say, about 10 years. I've always been a home baker, and it was actually during the pandemic that I had started my business from home and started selling at the farmers markets in Kealakekua, Hawaii. And then I got the opportunity to start a retail shop, and it was truly a dream come true. I'm so grateful for the experience. But something I'm really looking forward to with this podcast is just sharing all those different stories, conducting some interviews with different people who were involved in making the cafe. And I'm also really excited to share a lot of the recipes that never actually made it to the cafe, that were ones that I just tested and enjoyed at home. So without further ado, let's get into the episode and talk about running a cafe in Hawaii.
Hey, were you
Hey,
practicing?
Neil. I've never, normally when I record my podcast, Aviva does everything from like the producer perspective. So I was like testing it out, and I thought it was going to tell me like you're in the lobby when and then all of a sudden it was just like Neil's joining. And I was like, oh no, I'm
That's
recording.
fine.
I haven't used that
Yeah.
the Happy Heart Instagram in a long time, but part of what prompted this is like I do
Yeah.
still get random questions from people. Like even I made Pop-Tarts for my
Yeah.
coworkers at our like last or holiday party.
Oh my gosh, lucky them.
I don't really know. I feel like at this point I shouldn't care as much, but I do think there's that part of me that's like, man, it's crazy also to think about that it's almost been 3
Yeah.
years since we
3
closed the
years.
cafe. But
Yeah.
I still have so much. I know, isn't that crazy? It'll be 3 years in June or whenever we left.
Yeah.
When did we leave
Yeah,
Hawaii?
2022. You're right. That's right.
Yeah, we opened it in
Yes.
June and we closed it
Around
in
the same
June,
time.
right? Or
That's
like we
right.
closed
Yeah.
it like early July.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because I remember we took like
Yes.
a month to move out of Hawaii, right? And then we came
Right. My
here
family
in like
came.
August or September.
Yes,
That was
2022. That's right.
yeah, so it'll be 3 years. I don't
I
understand
know.
time
I
sometimes.
know. Gosh, I miss it so much. It's so much fun.
I think about this sometimes, especially because I work from home most of the time now. But sometimes I do have those moments where I think about how lucky I was when I could just like I really miss having the cafe to just always be stocked with
Yes.
any kind of food that I ever wanted, Like I could just make my lunch while I was in the cafe, or I could just like everything was already made, so it was just kind of like really easy to just scoop the beans out of the crock pot and like have lunch for yourself. And I feel like I kind of really miss feeling like everything was just there for me to eat it
Same. White
whenever I
pineapples,
wanted.
white pineapple smoothie, mangoes, fresh mangoes on top of the acai bowl,
Yeah.
sandwiches when we take flights and go on trips. Just go to our cafe, make sandwiches for ourselves.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I know Meryl and Audron still tell me about how those sandwiches, when we gave them for their flight, how it like made them so
Yeah,
happy.
even sandwiches, sometimes I'd eat them and I'd just be like, this is a good sandwich. This is delicious.
I'm gonna make some videos. I'm gonna do some of the recipes, or I'm gonna like
Yeah.
film myself kind of talking about them and then like show you how to make them. And then I'm gonna do some, I don't know, it was like kind of funny to think through like the smoothies, for example. I feel like people would be like, why is this white pineapple smoothie so freaking good? And I'm like, it's literally just ice, white pineapple, and water. But I really think like what we did
Yeah.
well was like we really got the ratios right. And so I was trying to explain that to my friend Audrey, where I do feel like there is something about like the food science of it all, right? Like the acai bowls, for example. Like how many times did people tell us like they loved our acai bowls? And I really think it was figuring out the like
Yeah.
what type of blender to use right and the like specific amount of water and like all of that together like really does make a difference, I
Yeah,
think.
that's
Oh, and the
right. That's
banana,
right. It's
right? We
like
put the banana
it's
in
like you
the
gotta get that
mix.
water so precise. You gotta get the banana no show.
Yeah, I know. And I feel like people thought we were crazy, but I do think like I always think about this one girl. I can't remember her name, but I just always think about this girl who really liked the I can't remember if it was the
Mm-hmm.
regular olive oil or the salami olive oil. It was either that or turkey beach time. But I just remember this girl like being kind of annoyed about the
Sure.
price of the sandwich, because she would like come get it all the time. And then she like kind of like was like, I could just make this at home. And I was like, sure, go make it at home. Like, I don't care. Like, you know? And then I can like still remember when she walked back into the cafe and she kind of had this like defeated look on her face. And she was like, Isabel, I tried to make the sandwich at home, but it just did not taste the same way as when you make it. And she was like,
That's
what do
right.
you do? And I was like, I mean, I do think there is something to like the psychology, right? Of like somebody else making a sandwich for you versus you making it for yourself. But then I also think that it has to do with like the type of mayo we
Oh
used, the
yes.
type of mustard, that like really good
Oh yeah.
mustard from Rebel Kitchen. And then I think too, just
Yep.
like the amount you put on each slice of bread, like sprinkling the little bit of like pepper and garlic salt. Like I feel like those things people don't think about when you're making a sandwich for yourself, right? Because you're kind of just like
Yeah, and
throwing
the
something
specific
together
like
most
type
of
of
the
bread
time.
or with that type of mayo or that
Yeah,
type
the
of
bread,
mustard,
yeah.
like, and with those ingredients. And even like I still do this because you taught me how to do this. Uh, Cutting the sandwich in half, like that makes a difference too. In a triangle, right?
In like a triangle, right? Yeah, I know it does. I've seen a meme about this on the internet where it's like if you cut it like
That is,
horizontal, that's like a totally different type of sandwich. But if you cut it at an
it's got to
angle,
be a triangle. It just makes it better.
I feel like it's like the perfect
Yeah,
proportion of
I feel like I
everything
can
when you
taste it
cut it that
better. Like the bread's
way.
not too bready.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the bread too, because that was the other thing I was
Yeah.
talking to my friend Audrey about. That I was like, when I make the sandwich video, because I was like, these videos are going to be kind of silly, but I feel like because it is
Sure.
going to be like, this is just how you make a perfect sandwich, right? But I do think that there is a science to it because I think about, I do have this like funny memory of like, I do think that we came up with all the sandwich ideas like 2
Yeah,
days before
and
the
you
cafe
came up with
opened. Like, yeah,
yes,
because I had
you came
forgotten
up with
about
like
them,
most
right?
of them. And I was like amazed. And you just started writing it out. All right, here are sandwiches. I'm like, okay.
I know. I can remember like having all the ingredients like on our counter. We were so lucky at that kitchen that we had. We had this like kind of wraparound counter in our kitchen in Hawaii. And I remember I just like had all the ingredients out because I remember like I had done so much. I had wasted so much time thinking about like how the walls were gonna look, how the floor was gonna look, like all the other stuff that I totally forgot about the fact that like we had sandwiches on the menu and I hadn't come up with the recipe for that. But I remember I had like kind of written down the ideas, and then we were kind of testing all of them. But I remember
Mm,
stressing so much about the bread because I like really wanted to use a local baker for the bread. I remember
yes.
I think
Yeah.
Sundog
Mhm.
Bakery at that time had brought their sourdough for us to try, but we felt like it was just too
Yeah.
sour, right? And like that kind of takes away from the taste of the
Right.
sandwich when the bread is a little too sour. So then I think I had just gotten a loaf from Island Naturals, and we felt like that was such a like neutral tasting sourdough because it wasn't like
Yes.
the
That's
sourness of it
exactly
wasn't
it.
super
Yeah, it
strong.
paired well. Yeah.
It was like a light bread, right? Yeah, I felt like it
Yeah.
paired really well across all the sandwiches. Um, but then that's also when you came up with the olive you. I feel
Oh,
like
yeah.
you have to give yourself credit for that so much because I remember thinking it was really weird when you were like, I'm gonna make myself a sandwich and you just put mayo and olives on bread. And I think I added the tomato. I feel like I remember that I think you put a little bit of lettuce on it, and then I was like, I think you need just like some other
Tomato?
kind of
Sometimes
vegetable on
tomato just
this.
makes a sandwich. Like, I just past couple days, I've been making myself tuna sandwiches, and just adding
Yeah.
tomato to it just changes it completely.
Ew, that sounds weird to
Oh,
me, but
yeah, but
I trust
tomatoes, you know,
your
it's
judgment.
but I guess my point is it's like the simple things, right? Or it's the little things.
I know, yeah, yeah. So for anyone listening that has no idea what we're talking about, we had a sandwich called the Olive You that was literally just mayo, olives, like ground up, crushed up olives, lettuce, and tomato. But we like sprinkled
Yes, salt
salt
and
and pepper
pepper.
on it, right? And then
That's something else I learned
that was the
from you with
sandwich.
making sandwiches.
That I think is another key thing. That's kind of my secret. I feel like I shouldn't have said this now because that's supposed to be in the video that people have to
It's a
pay
beautiful
for.
secret, though. Just put salt and pepper on the sandwich, and it magically
Yeah.
makes it better. It's incredible.
It does though. Okay. Well, that was a free $5 tip to everybody. But um yeah, I do think though that what was I gonna say about the olive you? Oh, because then I think I originally wanted it to be a salami sandwich because that was the thing. The reason I had the olives was because I really like the flavor of salami
Yeah,
and olives. And so that was what I do think the tomato does really like bring all the flavors together because
yeah,
it's kind of like a little bit of a palate cleanser, right? Because the olives and the salami all have a lot of like salt and then that like little tomato and like crunchy piece of lettuce in between like kind of is like a good like I honestly really do think there's an art to sandwich making because it brings it all together, right? But that was our most popular sandwich was this olive sandwich that you just
no,
like
no, it wasn't.
randomly put
That was
together on
one of
our
the
kitchen
most
counter.
popular. No,
I think it was the
Turkey
most
Beach Time,
popular.
dude.
That or Turkey
Turkey
Beach
Beach
Time.
Time is such a good name.
I know. We did have
That
really
was
good
so much
names
fun
for
coming up with all the
the
names for the
sandwiches.
different sandwiches.
No, but that's the other thing that I think is so funny is that we literally did that. Like it was, I swear, if it wasn't the day before we
Yep.
opened, it was at least 2 days before we opened. We came up with what the sandwiches were, the names, because I remember we were trying to think of it, and we were just kind of like Turkey
The
Beach Time, all of
best. Yeah.
you, the past, right? I think you came up with the past. Yeah.
Those are good names. I like those names.
I know. As I'm saying this, I'm just still like, they are good names and like they're good they're like the perfect beach sandwiches. Like that's the other way I always describe it to people is like Turkey Beach Time. I feel like the past. I feel like all of them, like going to the beach, like Kua Bay with like one of those sandwiches, I think is the
Oh
best way
gosh, I haven't been
to beach in
back
Hawaii.
since 2022, and I miss Kua Bay. Oh, I miss Kua Bay so
Oh, you haven't?
much. It's one of the places I
Yeah,
always think
same.
about when I think of a beach.
I See, I actually find myself thinking a lot about
Yes.
Kehau Bay
Yes.
a lot. That's where I used to paddleboard because I feel like I used to go there after the cafe, whenever I like felt like I had time or something, you know, just to like swim there. And there was one day where I remember like being on my paddleboard and meditating, and then I remember I like opened my eyes and I
What?
was literally surrounded by a pod of
Beautiful.
dolphins. And I was just like, what is this
Wow,
life?
that is beautiful.
Yeah,
Wow.
so I
Yeah,
think about that a
Kealakekua
lot.
Bay has like this feel of like this is where you go when you're living in in on Big Island, or when you're living there, it has
Mhm.
this is part of life feel. I don't know what I'm saying. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean because it's like when you go out on a board
Yeah.
and you're like looking back at the island from that perspective, right? And you can see like all the land, and then you can see like the part of the bay. I feel like that's such a beautiful I feel like
Yeah, it
that's a
is.
beautiful
Yeah, the
little like
view.
hidden
That's
spot.
right. The view back off
But
the
that's all.
island from being out there.
Yeah, I'm remembering that that's also where I almost drowned that one time. So I'm glad that I have
That's
a
right.
happy memory of that
That's right.
area.
Wasn't that where Luna stepped on the sea
So
urchin too?
that's also where Luna stepped on the sea urchin. Yeah, yeah, that's a that's a good spot. Okay, I
Oh,
didn't really actually have like a real plan for
I
all
like
of
that.
this. I figured we would just like
I like
talk
that.
and then I'll like edit it together to kind
Yeah,
of
that sounds good.
make sense. Um, yeah, but no, but thank you for being open to this. I feel like um, the main reason I wanted to do this, I guess I should just say this so that this is makes sense to other people, is just because when we closed the cafe, I took on a lot of debt from it, which to me, I felt like even though I knew it was going to be hard, right? And was like a consequence of like
Yeah.
every decision I guess I made at that time. It ultimately felt like for me, I chose the debt versus like, I don't know, I always think of it. I feel like I being a screenwriter, I dramatize some things in my life, but I always think about when like for context, like when we got the cafe, right, we only had to sign a year lease. And then um when that year was up, we were faced with
Yeah.
having to sign on for 5 more years, right? So that was kind of the place we were at, was like they wanted us to sign for 5 years. And things were going well though. Like we were profitable, right? We were like, I mean, we weren't like
Yeah, we were
I
break
wasn't
even,
fully paying
which was
myself, but we
amazing
were
for
like
business. Yeah.
um yeah, we were breaking even, yeah. Um
Yeah.
and we had Michelle at the time, right, who was a friend of mine that had
Mhm.
moved to Hawaii to come help me run it. But I knew she was going to be going back to Seattle. So then it was like, we're
Yeah.
going to have to find, another person to like really help manage it. But I think too, for us, right, the big thing was like, we just were feeling like we didn't want to stay in Hawaii. And I felt like too, my health was so bad at that time. Like it's
Mhm.
crazy to me when I think back on like my shoulder injury, and like how it like started before we even like opened the cafe, but then it just got so much worse. And I felt like my health was like in such a bad place that to me it felt like life or death in a sense, like it was like the idea of doing 5 more years of the cafe at the like health place I
Mhm.
was at was so overwhelming to me. And I was also overwhelmed by the idea of taking on debt for the next like 10 years of my life. But that felt
Yeah.
like a better choice, right? Which I'm still glad that like I made that decision. But sometimes I think for me, like I've um like refinanced the debt a little bit now, but it's just still crazy. And like it just like makes me sad when I think about just in general everybody who is in debt and like takes on debt, how like you just feel like you're just chipping away at it, and it's like the idea that it's been 3 years and I still have so much more to pay is like where I just started to feel again overwhelmed by it. But then I was thinking like I'm just sitting on all of these recipes, like all of this information that like people randomly message me, like asking like, you know, how to start a business in Hawaii, or like how do I make your Pop Tarts, or like I missed like the burrito, like how do I make it? And so that's where I just thought like, um, maybe there's a way for me to make some kind of like like dent in the day if people just gave me a couple dollars
Sure.
and then I gave them those recipes. So that was the idea behind all of this. But I don't know, I also just thought it would be fun to kind
Yeah.
of like reminisce on everything. And uh so I went back to Hawaii in
How was that?
September of last year. um and it was really great, actually. I definitely felt like I was a little hesitant about it
Mm.
because I wasn't sure how it would feel, to be back there, especially to see the cafe. But honestly, like I feel like I've made my peace with everything, so it felt like I was like in a really good place to see it, and it also just made me so happy to see how many people are still there, just like doing what they're doing. Like that's something I really love about Big Island is like seeing I saw
Gosh,
Carrie,
I
and
can't wait
Carrie
to see it.
has an art gallery now. Um I know, yeah, I think
Yeah.
they might have moved locations now since I was there, because I remember they were like looking at a new um location like closer into Kona Town. But it was just really cool to kind of see that like everybody is like, I don't know, still doing their thing, and just kind of like I like still making art, still at the farmers markets, still like doing their businesses. Like Kaya's
Yeah.
is still running, Gypsy Gelato is still running, like they're all still doing great, it seems. And I mean, it was a little like weird to like drive by the cafe. It just definitely feels like we had really built like a colorful like, spot there, like a good presence. So to kind of see it just like
Yeah.
like voided of all of that, and now it's just like a real estate like
Mm.
office or something. Um that made me kind of sad, but at the same time, I think that uh I don't know, I feel like what made me really happy too, though, was to see that like people like still remember it,
Yeah.
and like, oh, I saw
Yeah.
Noel who did all the like character faces and everything. So
Oh, yeah.
that was really cute. I saw
Yeah.
Katie, who had done the octopus, right? So I do kind of love that Hawaii like time does kind of feel like it stands still there. Like people are just like, I feel like people just have such a different lifestyle there, and I think that that's actually what
Yeah.
I miss more, compared to like the day to day of the cafe. It's more that kind of like lifestyle that feels a lot more slow paced, but like in a really nice way. That here it still feels very like, I
Yeah.
don't know,
I hear
workaholic
you.
culture.
Past 3 years have been kind of hard actually for me, and there's been struggle.
Yeah.
Um, there's been a lot of self-discovery. There's been sadness. There's been anger. There's been frustration. Just thinking about what a mess I've made in some ways in my life and feeling truth of who I am. But ever since the first time I went to Hawaii in 2015 or 2016, almost 10 years ago now, I just knew. I remember I got there and I just knew. It was the feeling of it.
Yeah, it is a totally different lifestyle. And I do feel like that's something that even I noticed when I went back in September, just like feeling it a little bit
Oh,
again, and just having like my friend
mm,
Audrey went with me. And there was this one day where we drove down to
sure.
Makalawena, and then we came back from it. And she had never been to Hawaii before. And so she didn't like know what to expect.
Yeah.
I think I have a video of this. It's like on the one side, there's like the volcano, and it's like all,
Yeah.
like the land. It's so beautiful. The sunset off of the ocean. And then on the other side was just like
Yeah.
big,
Did you
beautiful
take her?
rainbow. And we were just like, what like are we seeing? And I was like, Audrey, this is what it's like every day here. I was like, I don't know why we live in the city. We rented a car and went like all the way down and went to actual Makalana. Yeah, it was beautiful. I guess this was a question I kind of had, but more specifically about the
Mm,
cafe. It was just like whether or not we regret anything about the cafe, or if there's things we would do differently, knowing everything we know now, or like a lot of the questions I get from people are general starting a business in Hawaii and like the process. But I don't know,
yeah.
I was trying to think of
Yeah.
some reflections on that whole process process to give to somebody who might be wanting to start a cafe.
Yeah.
And I guess
Yeah.
to
Oh
remind you of
gosh, I miss
of
Lalima.
something, I always think of
Yeah.
Bonita. Remember when we met with Bonita
Everyone there was
from
so
La
cool
Lima
too. I
Patch
love
when
them.
we were gonna I know,
Yeah.
I think about that too. I really miss La Lima Patch. The food was so good. But I always remember
Yeah. Yeah.
I always think about that conversation we had with her when we were talking about the cafe. She like was like, "Don't do it, like it's so much stress. Like, if you're not 100%." And I was like, obviously at the time I was very like, I think there's also that part of me that
You're the
like whenever
rebel.
someone tells me not to do something or that I can't do something, I very much will react with like, I'm going to prove you wrong. But now I feel yeah, right. And then now, like in this whole like cycle, I feel like
Yeah.
now I understand her so much, and I feel like I'm that person in a lot of ways to people whenever they ask me for advice for like starting a business, especially a restaurant business. I'm just kind of like you gotta wake up every single day and want to do it, and like you have to want it to be your life and like consume your life. Because like I think that was the other thing I really struggled with the cafe. It was just like I didn't feel like I could take time
Yeah.
off, and like the idea of like not being able to travel. Cause I think that was the other thing, was recognizing that I still wanted to travel a lot and I still wanted to like be able to go and do things. And with being already so far from my family and trying to like work on those relationships with my family, it felt like so hard to be able to like make any time to see anyone and do anything with anyone.
Yeah.
Um, because the cafe consumed my whole life. I mean, I even thought about when Franny passed away and how I couldn't even go to her funeral. I mean, granted, it was like COVID time still, but I was just like, how am I going to close the cafe to like go to Ohio, which is like a 16-hour trip, right? But I think that to me was like really the hardest realization, was just like how much it consumes your life. And you've got to, if it's what you love and it's your passion, and you wake up every day being like, I want to be a business owner, I want to have a cafe, I want to get to like do all of this,
Yeah.
then yeah, I think if that's what you want to do with your life, then I think
Yeah,
someone should do it.
it's interesting. I feel it like all differently now. At the time, I remember that it just felt right for us to close it and move back.
Mhm.
Now, when I kind of look back on it all, I feel like could have kept the cafe and still kind of figured everything out. I guess
Totally
it's
disagree with
more of
that.
the feeling
Who
of
was gonna
it's
run
just
the
like the
cafe?
perspective that when I reflect on it, the cafe just dug up so much stuff. For me, it became this huge introspective journey for me
Mhm.
there and made it so that I had to deal with all the stuff coming up, and it was just so much. And I guess what I'm trying to say is I
Yeah.
feel like I could have done it in a less chaotic way, or whatever the decision might have been, right? Maybe I would have still been keen to close it, whatever. I guess my point is that I would have approached it with more peace and harmony versus the chaos that I felt with it at the time.
Yeah.
And I still, yeah, I
Mhm.
was just gonna say, I still feel sad about it because it was so beautiful, the cafe, and there was so much light from it, and I just so miss everyone and
Mhm.
interacting with everyone and miss the people so much.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh, I know the customers. I still sometimes talk to Celeste and Nick out on Instagram. They
Yeah.
were like, oh yeah, that was a question I was gonna ask you, was like our favorite customers or like customers we remember. But yeah, I do, that was
Yeah.
something I really, really loved about the cafe. And I feel like that is the stuff I miss too, was which I think also just goes to like community in Hawaii, was like the customers, people who became
I
regulars.
remember.
I'm totally blanking on his name, but there was a guy that would come and buy Pop Tarts always first thing in the morning and coffee on his way to work. And he was an Emerson alum. And like that was what was also crazy to me, was how many small world moments I had in the cafe that I loved, of like random people
Yeah.
who like were Emerson alumni, or like literally random people that I never thought I would see again from like college or like, my hometown or whatever, that would just like randomly be like, "Oh, I'm on vacation," and then like walk into my cafe and say, "Hi, Isabel." And I was just like, they're like, "Hey, I saw that you have a cafe on Instagram, and like now I'm here." And I'm just like, "Wow, I haven't seen you in 14 years." But I feel like everyone always had
Yeah.
such great energy too when they came. And so it was just so fun to be able to like reconnect with people in all those like small ways. And I loved too that like random people would like if they knew somebody who was coming to the cafe, they would tell them to come here. Like I remember my sister's patient came and he like walked in. I just remember he was such a nice guy and he had this big smile on his face and he was like, "You must be Isabel." And I was like, "Who are you?" And he was like, "Your sister's my doctor." And then it was just like so cute to have that like, random connection of like he had like seen Gabby in Minnesota as his doctor, and then he was suddenly on Big Island walking into my cafe talking to me.
And he would come first thing in the morning and buy a sandwich, I think, on his way to work. I don't remember his name. I think he would buy a sandwich. I don't remember his name, but you made me think of him. He came to mind, and gosh, just so many people, friends, friends that we would hang out with outside of the cafe that would then come to the cafe. Family, bummed my family never managed to come to visit, but I'm happy yours did, and I'm happy we got to
Yeah.
serve them. It really was. It was so much fun. But everyone else too, just tourists coming in and being able to welcome them and serve them.
Yeah.
There was so much beauty in it.
Yeah. You were just reminding me when you mentioned the guy in the sandwich, how the first day of the cafe, which I think we should talk about the opening for a second, because I just always remember that the first order we got, besides
Oh,
there was that woman who had like come and just bought all the gluten-free Pop-Tarts, remember? That like we
yes,
took a photo with
yes.
her, our first customer, and she was like, "I want to buy all your Pop-Tarts." I was like, "It's our opening day." But she was so sweet, and I thought it was really cute that we
Yep.
took that photo with her. But then I remember the first like actual order we got was like somebody ordered a turkey sandwich or like a turkey wrap, I think it was. And that like I was just not mentally prepared for the first order at like 8 a.m. to be a turkey wrap. And I remembered that I hadn't like practiced like wrapping, like making wraps. I had no idea how to make a wrap actually. I just remember that I was like in the corner with YouTube. I had YouTube how to make a wrap, like how to wrap a sandwich. I was like trying to figure out how to like wrap the sandwich, and I was so stressed. And I was like, how do I make a turkey wrap? Like it was like my brain literally just like forgot how to do it, and I was so worried about like
Sure.
people. I was so stressed that people were gonna like complain about the size of the wraps because like when you wrapped it, it kind of looked a little small. And so I just remember like because I hadn't been practicing it. So I was like, this wrap looks so tiny. They're gonna be so mad. But oh my gosh,
It
sometimes I
was
feel like I like blacked that day out of my memory because that was insane. Remember Little
okay.
Paca Roots came to play,
It was
but
one
there
of
was
the
nobody
best
there
days
because
of
we
my
had
life.
such a like
I
long line
loved
in the
that
morning.
day so much. I still remember just opening it up. I remember our first customer, and yeah, she bought all the Pop-Tarts. We took a photo with her. And then I remember there were 5 of us, right? And we had no idea what we were doing. Yes. And we had no idea what we were doing. We were like, okay, it's our first day. We'll probably get like a few customers. We'll figure it out. Oh my gosh. There's a line out the door. We were just not ready for it. People were waiting like an
Yeah.
hour and a half to get their food, and we just had to surrender. We just had to tell people,
I
sorry,
know. Some people
we have
didn't
to
even
stop
get their
taking
food after
orders
waiting an
and just
hour.
like turn
That
people
was
away because we just
horrible.
didn't know what
I
we were
feel
doing. We
sick
had no
thinking about it
idea
right
how
now.
to operate the place.
Yeah. The power outlets would go
Yeah.
out because like we
Yeah.
did it. That was before. Actually, this is good. This is helpful. This was like
Yes.
really helpful information.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the days after this because we learned so much, but that was
Yep.
like our power outlets would go out from like the blenders, the
Mhm.
toaster, like remember I had that tortilla press, and also like the menu we had the little
Yeah.
torta things that I was doing where I like fried the torta and I was making putu. Well, like I was
I
steaming putu. Like how was I thinking that was gonna work out?
We learned so much about it. But just the first day, Lopaka roots, even though there was no one there to start with.
I know, yeah,
But
that's true.
then people started coming. And I still remember there's one group of girls like sitting there and Lopaka Roots is
Yeah.
playing. And I just started singing along and they were singing along too. And it was just the best time. And, I guess we felt bad because we were hoping for an audience for Lopaka Roots. Yeah, we felt like we let him down kind of thing, but it turned out to be beautiful anyway, and it was there was so much hard work that went into the whole thing. It was like months and months of hard work. Still remember assembling all the furniture and us like painting the walls and what else? There was just trying to figure out just the outdoor decoration.
All the plants and everything. Remember I think we made like 3 trips to Home Depot to get all those plants.
Yeah.
Oh, I wanna come back to the plants because that was another that was like another like annoying stress point was all those plants. But I wanna first mention how I something I did also really love about the cafe was the how many people were involved in putting it together. I think that's the other thing is like
Yeah.
even though um, sometimes I feel like I spent too long and like I spent too much time
Yes.
making it look
Yeah.
really nice. I mean, ultimately it looked really nice. So I am like proud of that. But remember our neighbor Jay came and he
Best
helped me
people
make that
ever.
countertop in the back. Like that was he just like did that out
Yeah.
of the like kindness of his heart, just like wanted to help in some way. I know, yeah, yeah. Jay, that was so sweet. And then um Keiko, remember, did the menu, the chalkboard menu. She had done such a good job, but I kind of want to go back to talk about when after the first day, which the reason I think I block out that day sometimes is because that was also the day that I fed that vegan girl the beef burrito accident. I felt so bad. I felt so horrible.
Yeah.
That was like obviously not my intention, but I just felt like we were so overwhelmed. We had no idea what we were doing. It was really like, I think too, that was like, we hadn't even the way the receipts printed right. Like, we
Right.
learned from that to like make them say beef, like really, really big or beans. Like, we could change the font size on it and everything, right? But so we learned a lot from that. But then I remember she sent me a message on like that she was gonna like tell everybody not to eat at my place. And she was like so upset because it was like so I mean, which I get, if you're somebody who doesn't eat animal meat, like I imagine that is like super traumatizing to accidentally, eat it. But I just remember people
Yeah.
sending me messages being so mad at me for that. And then it was just like this weird experience where you're just like, it's not like I intentionally did that. Like I made a mistake. I get that it's like a horrible mistake to make. And I feel so bad that I caused somebody so much pain from that. But at the same time, I was just kind of like, I can't be perfect. And I feel like that was like very much the beginning of, for me, what was a like emotional stress with the cafe was like dealing with people's reviews and like people like saying, which is funny. I think this is more of a like how
Yeah.
in general we all tend to like focus on the negative things more than the good. Because I feel like we generally got so many positive reviews that I still always think about the person who just like bought a Pop Tart and then like wrote a 1-star review and was like, this Pop Tart was
Yeah.
too crumbly
Yeah.
and dry. And I was just like, that's because you bought a half off day
Yeah.
old Pop
I
Tart.
mean, about the
Like,
vegan girl, yeah, I can understand why she was angry. I would be too. I mean, she was vegan for a few years, if I remember right, and that was the first time that, she ate animal meat. So, yeah, she had reason to be angry. And you know what? We learned from it.
yeah.
We took responsibility. We figured out, yeah, we don't know what we're doing. We need to learn. And I remember we actually changed our point of sale system to very clearly identify if something is vegan or not on the printed receipts, printouts. And I don't think we ever made a mistake with that again because, yeah, so we learned
Mhm.
from it. There was so
Yeah.
much stuff that we just didn't know.
Yeah.
We had the kind souls at what was the restaurant next door, which I really liked. It's been there for like a
Yeah,
long
yeah.
time. Tashima's, yeah. I love that place, and I remember I think the daughter of the owner, something like that, or I think maybe the owner. One of them like told us a little more about thoroughly,
Yeah.
and yes, and so
How to
that
clean the
because I
vegetables, yeah.
remember they had
Especially the lettuce.
uh, we don't need to go into it. Yeah, yeah, something like that. It was a very, uh,
Their grandmother,
yeah, they
somebody had
had
passed away from,
it was a very beautiful.
rat
Yes,
lungworm disease,
yeah,
right? Yeah. From eating lettuce in a restaurant. So they had a pretty traumatic experience that I felt like though that again was
yeah,
an example
yeah,
of someone like learning. I mean, obviously that was a very more intense because they had lost a family member to that, but yeah, we really took the washing of vegetables and everything seriously once we had that conversation too.
I had a lot to learn about how to not just talk to customers all day and actually make some food.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
you would like chat people's ear off, and I'd be like, "Yo, I need you to help me like make some smoothies." You can't just talk to everyone for 20 minutes.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun with it. But yeah, I learned,
You
okay,
were
there's
really good at
balance
being
here.
cashier,
I
though.
I can have fun being cashier and talking to people, but I gotta make the food too. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
That was also your first customer service job, right? Which
Some
I really think you excel at.
But we had a certain niche with our with our menu. With the acai bowl, for example, like just like no added sugar, like completely unsweetened.
Yeah.
To some people, it just didn't taste that good because that was one of the
People
things I
wanted the
still
sugar.
remember. The
That's what.
frightening realizations. I don't know if you remember this, but I remember we did an experiment. Was it with the Pop Tarts or something where we were reducing the sugar? We're trying to use less sugar. And I remember the sales actually went down as a result of that. And it
Yeah.
just taught me that, oh yeah, sugar sells. People like stuff when it's sweeter. You just look at the whole industry off pastries and even everything from healthy pastries that are marketed as healthy pastries,
Yeah.
whatever. Tons and tons of sugar.
Yeah,
Yes.
I wanna go into that more, but I wanna take us back for a moment to when we met Lars, because remember Lars was, like, the electrician for Gypsy Gelato, and I know he's the guy who taught us, like, because we were trying to figure out, like, why does, like, our I think this is actually really important, so anyone who's
Yes.
going into a business, you need to understand how many outlets you have and the voltage of all those outlets, because that was something we didn't understand that, like, we then really helped us with, like, the operational. So, like Neil was saying, like, we had, like, 5 people working on that first day. Towards when it was the end of the cafe before we closed, we were down to only 1 to 2 people could operate it. But I think a lot of that was because we really streamlined and made our space, like, super efficient. I remember, like, literally after we closed the cafe, doing all the dishes, after we, like, took all the time, we just, like, sat there, and I think we had Lars come, and the big thing we didn't realize was using the NutriBullet, for example. Like, you can't use that with the same outlet as the toaster,
Yeah.
because the voltage was overpowering it or whatever. And so we just didn't understand that. So we had to like do that whole, we had to, I feel like it was like a science experiment to figure out like both like the voltage of all of those different outlets and then where they were located, right? Because you can't move them. And then
Yes.
where we could like set up, because we totally redesigned the entire cafe space to make it make sense with the voltages, right? Because we were like, okay, we're going to put this. We got like a stainless steel
Yeah.
counter. Remember, we put it in that one corner next to that one voltage thing so that we could use it for the crock pots for the beef and the burrito, and then the like tortilla press. And then it was like we changed the configuration around with like the
Right.
fridges so that we
Right.
could use the one voltage thing that was at the bottom by that left fridge so that we could use that for the toaster. And then we made the countertop area just only blender for acai bowls. And then that was too why I think we took some things off the menu, right? Because the Instant Pot, for example, like that would use like when you I think there was like a science to it too. It's like if we're gonna use the Instant Pot to like pressure cook the dal, we had to like do that, and then you couldn't have anything plugged in at that time while it was like cooking for like the 20 minutes
Yeah.
or whatever. But
Yeah,
then when it
that's
was
right.
done, you could like leave it in on like just keeping it heated mode, and then you could like plug in the blender. But it was all everything had to be done at very like specific times. And then I remember too, like when the oven, I would like bake the Pop Tarts first thing in the morning,
Yeah.
right? And like run the oven. And that was like another thing where
Right.
I think people didn't quite understand where like why we didn't like keep baking off more Pop Tarts throughout the day, right? Because like the oven took so much energy from all of the power to like start up and heat up. While that process was happening, we couldn't just like, plug in the toaster or like make an acai bowl. Like, God forbid somebody wanted an acai bowl while the toaster was cooking the Pop Tarts. That would like take the power out.
Which meant that we had to
Yeah.
bake it in the morning only or do it during a time when at like after hours, right, where no one was actually being served.
Right, yeah. I think though that that was something you were really good at. Was I feel like you really took on the like streamlining of how can we like reconfigure the space, right? To make it make sense. Like I feel like that was something that we had to really think through, like the efficiency too, right? Of employees, of like not that we were necessarily like timing people and everything
Yeah.
in that way. It was more so like because I can remember us too like all like standing there because like the other thing was like having 5 people back there was like so crowded. I remember like we would do that kind of like experiment of like if I'm standing here and I'm chopping to make sandwiches and I turn, like I can't be running
Yes.
into the
Yeah.
person who's
Yeah,
like
there was a
over here
flow,
worrying about
right?
making smoothies and
Right.
acai bowls and like all of that kind of stuff. Yeah, yeah, like
Mm.
figuring out the flow of it. But I want to go back to what you were saying about sugar because I also want to remind you and anyone who's maybe listening to this that
Yeah.
remembers us from the beginning because this whole concept of the cafe, sometimes I have to remind myself, started when I was like experimenting.
Yeah.
And during the pandemic, while everybody was making sourdough and bread, I was trying to figure out how to make a good vegan cheesecake. And that was kind of where I like went down into my brain. I really wanted to make vegan pastries that still tasted good because I felt like, I mean, granted, that was like 5 years ago or so now. I felt like I hadn't really had very many good vegan pastries that were super sweet, right? And I thought a lot about a bakery I had used to work in Seattle that was sort of like branded as like gluten-free and
Yeah.
healthy. But then when I was like making brownies and stuff there, we literally were putting like 8 cups of sugar into the brownie mix. So I feel like that was something we were both pretty conscious about, right? With the cafe was we wanted it to be as healthy as it could while
Right.
also still tasting good. But we actually started at the farmer's market, which I do sometimes think about that first day at the farmer's market. Like, remember, I had made like 20 different things. I feel like that's always my advice to people too, is to just always start as small as you can. Because even though I thought I was so happy, it was so cute to have all the lemon bars, all the different types of cookies and the Pop Tarts and bread and your granola, right? We were selling so much different stuff. But then we kind of learned from that like the best sellers out of everything were the macadamia nut cookies and the Pop Tarts. And so that's kind of why that became the stuff on the menu. But when you were talking about sugar, I was thinking
Sure.
about I learned a lot about my people pleasing tendencies through the cafe because I can remember making like 3 or 4 different types of cookies because I wanted there to be like all the different types of
Yeah.
sugar content,
Mhm.
right? Because there was like one girl who
Right.
really liked that I made that cookie with like agave or something that was like low glycemic, right? But then other people didn't like that cookie, so then I was constantly making I think I was making 3 or 4 different types of the same cookie just with different sugar ratios to try and have something for everybody.
Gosh, that was a good experience.
Yeah, I know. The farmer's market, that's another thing that feels like such a lifetime ago that, like, honestly, I
Yeah.
think if I had any advice to really
Yeah.
give to somebody, I would just tell them to stay at the farmer's market for as long as you can, before you expand into a bigger space. Because that, I feel like I could have spent more time at the farmer's market and just, I mean, obviously, I didn't know what I know now.
Yeah.
It was so much fun.
It was so much fun setting up and chatting with our neighboring stalls, our neighbors at the market, and it was out on the grass and just being in nature. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, and there were so many amazing stalls there
Yeah.
too, and
Pure Kona
Thai food
Green
stall,
market. That
and
was where we started.
Harry had his art there, and wow, I still have stuff that I bought from people at the
Oh,
market.
yeah.
Gosh, I miss the mango. Oh my god.
Yeah. And Mango Man. I used to get all the mangoes from him. I miss the mangoes. That's definitely one of the biggest things I miss from Big Island. Those mangoes. That was what was cool too though. It was really cool to kind of have that experience of like going from starting at the farmer's market and growing it into a cafe. And I do feel like I
Yeah,
do think that when I reflect back on it all as a whole, I think we did like a really good job at like doing that scale, right? Like it did go from like this tiny little farmer's market booth to then like having like
yeah,
customers see us at that little, like our booth was kind of like crafty, I had those like little tablecloths and we had the little plants and stuff and we kind of went from that to the cafe. I think that was kind of cool for people to get to see us grow and it was kind of fun to have people come to the cafe that had known us at the farmers market. People from the Waimea farmers market even sometimes would like come out to the cafe. So like that was kind of cool to have when I
yeah.
stopped doing the Waimea market, get to see
And I do
people.
to stay at the farmer's market longer because it's a great test bed. I mean, we learned that the Pop Tarts were our best product at the farmer's
Hmm.
market, and it continued to be that way
Yeah.
at the cafe. It's what drew people in. It definitely taught us a lot of stuff, and it's a lot of fun. Great environment too, and there wasn't I also think that it's good advice because it's, you know, what you said, because we took on more than we were ready for, in a sense, at the time. We could have learned more, and it
Yeah.
probably would have made our lives a little easier if we had scaled it earlier. We would have learned, you know, about the baking, right, and how to scale the baking, that kind of stuff. But then again, you know, you open a cafe and you really
Right,
learn.
yeah.
So yeah, the only way to learn it is by
Yeah,
doing it.
that's true.
So
I do feel like we were just kind of thrown into a business school in a way. Well, that's why I'm definitely somebody who does, like, at the end of the day, I'm going to tell somebody to do it. Like, if you want to do something bad enough, I think you kind of have to do it and experience it for yourself. And like, you might go down the same path as us, and like, you might, you know, spend 3 years and end up, you know, in with
yeah,
poor
yeah,
health and a mountain of debt, and you're gonna like end up going the same route as me, but I still think you'll have a lot of fun because that's where I ultimately am like, I don't regret anything about it because it was so much fun. I think I would have
yeah.
continued to spend my life wondering what would have been, you know, if I hadn't actually pursued that because I always had wanted to have a cafe, you know, and I did really love baking, and I think it took a lot on me just physically from like the baking, but when people get to try the recipe, when I put it out there for them, I think maybe they'll see
Mm,
why it was so much work on me because like with that recipe, you do have to do a lot of rolling. And so that's really, you know, what pinched the nerve in my shoulder
God.
was the repetitive rolling of the dough.
Uh,
But that's also what made it so flaky and delicious. um Right, yeah, it's like a lot of pain from so I think that's the other thing I think about that I reflect on all the time whenever I go buy food anywhere is like I tip and I just really appreciate the people who run small businesses and sell at the farmers market. I feel really, you know, lucky that I still am in that world in my job now. It is sometimes hard to like watch somebody be like rude, you know, like in a customer service setting, especially in a small business where it's just I always think about that day. There was a day at the cafe where this like couple came in and they were really upset that we were out of Pop Tarts. We were sold out, and they were kind of like not
yeah,
like yelling, but they were kind of being like really rude and like in Michelle's face about like, you know, why don't you make more Pop Tarts like throughout the day? Like why like what kind of businesses, blah blah blah. And I was literally in the back and where we
yeah,
made the Pop Tarts, rolling the dough out because I can't remember the name of the baker, but she hadn't shown up for the day and we needed to make more Pop Tarts. And I was already dealing with my shoulder pain and I was literally in pain, rolling out the dough. And I was trying so hard not to cry as
yeah.
this like customer was complaining about why there wasn't more Pop Tarts. And I was just like, I'm doing the best that I can. But I think about that a lot with small business owners, like how sometimes small business owners get expected to like operate as if they are like a corporation or a, you know, mega chain restaurant. Like I feel like that standard is held on them by like the average customer. And it's just like what makes usually a small business so special is that it's somebody's passion and craft, you know, and that it is just them. It's not 20 employees or, you know, some corporate chains recipes and stuff. It is like literally somebody, like usually the owner is there, like in some capacity every day. So I hope that people will be kinder when they are I hope people will continue to shop small local businesses and that they will be kinder to those people.
You start to see how difficult it is to do all of the things right and simultaneously. Like, you can have really good service, you know, restaurants you've been to with like really good service, but
Yeah.
sometimes they don't put a lot of attention to their food. For example, you go to a health food restaurant that puts a lot of attention, is really high quality, you know,
Mhm.
organic ingredients, all of that, but it's really, really expensive and outside of the price point. Then you have what most health cafes are today, where they find a
Mhm.
compromise. Not all the ingredients are organic, some of them are, and they try to find a compromise between paying people well, a good wage, which is one of our things too, and providing a good customer service while at the same time making food with care, not
Yeah.
sloppily. And I guess I learned that it's really, really hard to do all of these things simultaneously. And so if you want a fast casual experience, even
Okay.
here in Long Beach, Los Angeles, there's lots of fast casual, health food restaurants, and every place has to sacrifice on something. But if you want the experience of the grace, the
Right.
island life, the hey, let's relax, take our time, enjoy this food, and trust in its goodness. Can't have everything,
Mm.
right?
Right. Yeah. I know. Yeah. I think about that a lot too. We really wanted to take care of the employees and offer them benefits, but then that was also expensive to do that. So I understood while people had
Yep.
a ton of part-time employees, but then you also, when you sacrifice on that, then you have to constantly be hiring. And like, even when I was back on Big Island, I'm like, Kaya's is still always hiring. They're just always having to try and find people. And I'm just like, that to me, I was like, I'd rather pay more to like have somebody on, full-time benefits, like someone like Michelle, right? This is their full-time job versus constantly always looking for people. And I think that to me was the hardest thing about doing business specifically in Hawaii, was finding employees and finding good workers, because I think that is the one thing about the island that is maybe difficult for
Yeah.
business owners, is there's a lot of transient people. And so you get a lot of people who come to the islands, right, and are woofers, and they're looking for part-time jobs, or people who might only be there for a year or so. So I do think that that's a hard struggle, is to like find good workers. I think there are a lot of really good workers, but I think that when you find somebody that's like really good, you really want to keep them. And I think that's where the businesses that are still there and are super successful, I think they really have at least like, one or two
Yeah.
people who are
And
really
I mean,
good,
I is
or
a
they're the
great
owner,
example.
and you have
It's
family,
like
and your
they've
family are
figured
your
out
employees.
these different things that I
Mhm.
mentioned,
Yeah.
and it works for them, and they've been successful. They've been running a
Yeah.
successful business for a long time, serving healthy meals to a lot of people and impacting people's health in a positive way,
Mhm.
which was ultimately our goal with starting it, is trying to be part of change,
Yeah.
to get people to eat healthier food,
Mhm.
drink healthier drinks. And we're all trying to find us in all the health food cafes. We're trying to find our
Yeah.
place in how we balance our needs and customers' needs, employees' needs.
That's the other thing that I'm always proud of too. And I think back on our cafe, something I really felt like
Yeah,
we were both passionate about. And I think we did a good job on it, was wanting to educate people that, right, on health. And I think we did get a lot of like hesitation, because even though it wasn't fully
yeah,
vegan, right, it was dairy free. And like we were very much both not able to digest dairy. So we weren't eating dairy. And I think that did, create some confusion to
yeah.
people, which I think we were always
Mhm.
trying to play around with, like, what's the language to use, which I think we just ended up saying mostly plant-based and
Yes.
dairy-free, but we did have real meat. But I think that what I liked about that was that it did feel like there was always something for everybody. And then, I mean, obviously, some people would have preferred to have milk as an option for their lattes.
Yes.
We couldn't make coffee. That was like the other thing people didn't quite understand. We couldn't do latte drinks and stuff, but that was because Gypsy
Yeah.
Gelato did them next door. So we weren't allowed to compete. We had to non-compete with them on espresso drinks, which makes sense. We were fine with that. But I
Mm.
think that it was more so that people wanted to have milk options or like regular mayo and stuff. But I think that what
Yeah.
I found, at least, was we were super allergen friendly. That's another thing that I realized. I get a lot of messages from people on Facebook who come across our cafe because of how allergen friendly we were. And so that's something that kind of makes me sad sometimes, is feeling we did kind of have that niche thing where like we were really able to have something for everybody, and we could like really help people who like had allergies to nuts or soy and stuff. I feel like we had like a good menu for that. But I always think about there being tourists who like came in and were maybe from Midwest areas, and the conversations I had with them about why everything was, and then when they would eat the food, and then either in some cases they wouldn't realize that it was vegan, that the mayo and stuff was vegan, and then it kind of led to these like great
Yeah.
conversations on the way to incorporate, you can still have a turkey sandwich without the dairy being in it, and it can still be good. And maybe that in some small way just helps introduce healthier eating, veganism in some way. I feel we actually kind of had that conversation in a way that to me always felt more productive than, the stereotypical type of vegan person who's like screaming at you not to eat meat. I feel like we kind of introduced people to here's how you could have a vegan sandwich, this olive you sandwich is fully vegan, but like it tastes really good and it's delicious. And then you want to add turkey or salami to it, you can, but it's still, you're not having the dairy. But I don't know. I felt like it was confusing to people. I think like we kind of also, I think another thing you did well was the menu design and figuring out how to communicate these are sort of confusing ideas to people. But I don't know. I just always felt like since I was there mostly every day, I had a lot of great conversations about health and diet with people that always made me feel like, okay, we're doing something slowly, but I feel like we're introducing new ideas to people.
I felt like we did our best to align our menu to truth of health as we know it, and true to us, and truth of what we were seeing from all the scientific advice.
And how
And the truth is, there is no consensus right now on whether a vegan diet is the best diet
yeah.
or carnivore diet or omnivore or vegetarian or whatever you want to do it. And there's debates about dairy and all this and all that. Truth is, there is no firm consensus about everything. There isn't even consensus about the optimal diet for longevity. Scientists are still figuring all this stuff out. And a big part of it is trusting our own intuitions. And a big part of that truth is realizing that everyone's bodies is different. For some people, the vegan diet is the best diet for them. For some people, through their own intuition, they have not found a resonance with it. And until such time that we have more resources available, we kind of have to do our best based on our intuition of what feels the best to us with the resources and the knowledge that we have available to us. And I feel like that's what we did. And so, like you said, there was something for catering to everyone, but there are some truths that we do know that there is consensus about in the health community, like eating more fruits and vegetables is generally accepted to be better for you. There's certain truths like that we tried to embody with the menu of the cafe, and I think we did.
Yeah, no, I totally think we did. I think a lot about too how much just like adding, like getting people to like fruit more. I feel like that's just like been my personal agenda for a while. But like the fruit plates, I feel like those really like surprised people. Even the salads, I think that's another thing I think about with the little videos and stuff I'm gonna make for people to access. But I think that that one girl who like really loved it that would come and get it like every day. It's like there is something about the presentation of food that makes you like when you look at like a big beautiful salad plate or like a big beautiful plate of fruit that like don't you want, like how could you look at that and not want to eat that compared to the slimy little, I don't know, I think about like the way fruit is sold in the grocery store in those like little containers where like it's sitting in like simple syrup, and that is how like fruit is generally like presented to like the average person, especially in the Midwest. But I don't know, I do feel proud of the way that we presented this information to people in a way that helped in some.
I think it probably impacted more people in more ways than we can even imagine, because it impacted me just since we met. And before we met, I was never a big salad person. Fruit, yes, I liked fruit, and I think we both had that in common. We just loved fruit. Fruit is delicious. Salad's not really so much that I can remember, but I remember when you presented salads on like this beautiful plate, I was like, wow, this might actually be delicious. And now I eat a salad every day, pretty much. So I eat fruit and salad pretty much every day. I'm sure it impacted a lot of people's lives as it did. Gosh, fruit is magical.
I know. Yeah. I feel that was the one thing when I was in Hawaii that I thought about like the next time I go, I want to kind of plan to go when it's like mango season or like white pineapple season, because I feel like I didn't like think about it so much in that way. But there's something else I was just thinking of
we were
that.
talking,
What was I gonna say?
menu choices and
What were we talking about
trade-offs
before?
when you are trying to run a successful health food business.
I was just gonna throw in how like we say all of that, but we can't sound like, because then we also had Julie's donuts that were absolutely delicious, and we also sold those donuts, which were not super healthy, but they were delicious.
I eat pretty healthy, pretty clean, but I do treat myself as well. Though it's less and less these days, but I still enjoy.
Yeah. Another thing I thought was like interesting about our menu that
Yeah.
I remember people really, I was always surprised that people really liked the putu and the dal, because I wanted to incorporate some of my Indian recipes into it. And I think something I'm probably maybe most proud of was
Yeah.
that I think every Indian person that had the Mexican Indian burrito like freaking loved it. And there's like nothing more satisfying than pleasing an Indian family. I can still remember the guy and his family
Yeah.
that like really loved. And I remember too, I'd be like a little hesitant about the beef, you know, because like obviously some Indian people don't eat beef, but you know, they would get the Mexican Indian burrito, the vegan version. And I really just think it was like the combination of the Indian spices and all the other little flavors. That's something that I still think about, that I'm like, if I was gonna like sell stuff still, I feel like the burritos, the Pop-Tarts, and the sandwiches, if it was just those items, like
Oh, the mango habanero hot sauce was beautiful. I loved the fact that we had a proper burrito. that would please like anyone who was used to eating burritos. And
yeah,
that was
yeah.
pretty cool because not everyone's into health food. And you know what? That makes someone who may not be a health food person now come into the restaurant, as we had some customers like that who weren't health food people. And they came in, had the burrito, and they're like, huh. And perhaps that was their opening to eating in a more conscious,
Yeah.
healthy way.
I'm just remembering too that was I think when I make the burrito video, I want to talk about the
Yeah.
like science of a burrito, because I tasted a few different burritos around Kona to sort of figure out the perfect ratio.
Yes.
And I remember, I can't remember the name of the place. It was by that K-How shopping center, by that movie theater. There's a burrito place there. I remember I felt like that was the best burrito in Kona, because it was literally, there was something about it too, just like being no fuss. It was just like beans, you know, beef and cheese and the sauce, and like that's all. And it was just like everything was like perfectly, the perfect amount of everything. But I do think there's also a
Yes.
science to how we made the burrito,
Yeah.
because we did the like avocado and sour cream. We kind of like mixed it together, you know, and like I really think it is there's something about the way you build a sandwich and a burrito that can really change the experience of it.
But it's the tortilla that you chose for it. That tortilla, gosh,
Yeah, yeah. The tortilla,
and I think
yeah.
it was an Indian brand, if I remember right. Right? Yeah, and it just brought it together. It just made it distinct from other burritos.
The base matters so much. Like the tortilla you use, right? Compared to the sandwiches, the bread you use, and then the mayo, like the, cause like the, I think what made Turkey Beach Time so good was that combo of the mayo and the mustard, because it's like it balanced those flavors balanced out really well, especially that mustard. Um, if yeah, I feel like people overlook the base on things.
These slices of bread. I still do that today because it works.
Yeah, yeah. Like the way, like the amount, or like you mix the mustard and the mayo.
Makes a difference.
Okay, I have one more thing, and then I feel like we should wrap this up. But something I when I was like trying to think through things we could talk about or reminisce on for this, that I had not necessarily forgotten about, but that I'm like, oh man, you know, the world never got to see this. So I think maybe I'll post
I
this
was
when I
thinking about
start
that
doing this
earlier.
like project or whatever. But we had recorded a jingle at KWXX with
Yes. Oh gosh.
and
And
I
we
was like, man,
recorded
there's
it
this
at
adorable jingle that
KWXX
we made that like the
at
world
their
never
studio.
got to hear. I know. And on Yeah, like honestly, that's something too. I just think about like the what makes me so happy about this whole experience was that it wasn't just us, like we did include other people in this experience with us. And like that's something I feel like you really gave to Jackson, right? Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, like you like those were what, like 10-year-old kids that like liked to play the ukulele and like you like you taught them how to do it, and then we literally like they got to go to KWXX and like sit in that like recording room, and we like recorded a jingle like for the radio with I can't remember that guy's name, but like that was just such a fun little experience.
Yeah, and I'm so bummed that we never released it because we were gonna make an ad out of it and run it on the radio station on KWXX, which was our favorite radio station.
I know.
And I'm really bummed that we never ran it because it was a good jingle.
Yeah. It was such a good jingle. I think it was kind of expensive to run it, but I think the reason we didn't run it was because we weren't like we were like we don't want to overwhelm ourselves. Like we just had that. Yeah, I think this happened after the opening because we were so stressed still kind of about the opening had been, like so many people waited. It was so busy. And we were still kind of figuring out how we are going to do. So I think we had kept talking about like we would run it once we were like in a more manageable place to be able to like, if like a ton of people started like coming to the cafe after hearing it. I kind of just wish we had just kind of
Yeah,
run
me
it because it was
too.
just so fun
Yeah.
and cute, and it was so like Kona, like it was so perfect for Kona. But I think too, I was feeling a little bit worried about the because remember we said something like something and like and don't forget the burrito or like everything is vegan except for the burrito, something like that. But then I had given the beef burrito to the vegan girl, and so I was so worried about that, like them taking that personally. Like I thought that like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna start a whole thing and like people are gonna pick at the cafe. So I was definitely in my head a lot, I think, with some things at the cafe. But um I'll definitely, I still have like the video and stuff, so I think I'll share that on the Happy Heart Kona Instagram.
One of the lines was everything is vegan or something except the burrito, like you said. And then that incident happened
Yeah.
and we were feeling bad. We were like, if we run this, like, is it gonna sound like it's taking
I know,
we're making a
yeah.
joke about it when that wasn't our intention. So it was a valid reason, but we could have changed the lyrics and ran it if we wanted to. But I think that, like you said, there were other factors at play and the cost of it to run the ads, and we were trying to um, figure all that stuff out. So, but yeah, it's a bummer that we never did.
Oh my goodness. I don't know. Is there anything else that you want to talk about that like related to the cafe?
When you shared earlier about how you it was a dream come true for you or something like that, felt like that for me too. I think I told you this, but in my mid 20s was trying to start a food business, a food cart business. And and I never actually made it work. I was experimenting with recipes and just never can make it work. But it was only after I met you that the pieces came together, and I was like, oh my gosh, I get to be a part of this cafe. And so I guess it's going back to your point about vision or dreams. And yeah, it's like I'm so happy that we did it because it was a dream come true, literally. So I wanted to mention that for anyone out there who is dreaming about starting a food business. So it feels really good to have done it. Guess I just wanted to say how much I miss everyone, anyone who's watching this. If we've met, if we've chatted before on the island, I've probably thought of you at some point, and I miss all of you, and I can't wait to see you all again. It is inevitable. I will be back in Kona on the Big Island because I love it so much. And I also wanted to thank Gypsy Gelato for giving us the opportunity to start the cafe and the space because gosh, it was a good space.
I know. Yeah, it was such a perfect space, and like I do feel so like eternally grateful to them for like taking that chance on us. I do feel we were so lucky that they like believed in us, and that they
Yeah,
allowed us to have that opportunity. And like I always felt so bad about like how things kind of ended and just like that we didn't sign on for 5 more years. And I mean, they understood, and I feel like we left things with them generally feeling like we understood why each other had to do
yeah,
certain things. But man, yeah, I mean, they are like the reason our dreams came true, and I think that that's really special that they like played that role in our lives. And, I'm so thankful to them. And I think they are also two people that I really admire that really work so freaking hard, have such a great vision, really just have built like something really cool. It's just really cool to just see how much they have expanded
wait,
from
what,
literally
Rebel
remember when
Kitchen?
we used to go to their
Rebel
old
Kitchen?
shop.
Oh,
What was that burger place that it used to be next to? We used to go
oh,
get a burger. Not Rebel Kitchen. It was burger. We used to go get a burger and then we'd go get Gypsy Gelato. Annie's Burgers. But yeah, kind of just seeing how they've like expanded too, and I think their gelato is really good and they work really hard and they deserve all of their success. So they're still there. They're still doing everything.
yeah, they're beautiful people, and right, they work hard. People don't see it because they're in their warehouse kitchen. Right, they're in the background, but yeah, they work day and night. Yeah, and all the other businesses. I mean, Kaya and Rebel Kitchen, and I mean, I've seen how hard they work too. It's that's what it takes.
I was going to tell you the one thing that was funny to me going back to Hawaii was because I realized one of the things that I used to stress a lot about with the cafe was how much, because I think another like little hard thing for anyone trying to do business in Hawaii is just,
Yeah.
which I think was like we made this more difficult for ourselves because we really cared, right, about the brands that we used and like the
Yes.
quality of the brands on things. So
Yep.
it made it just harder to source those things in bulk, which then also made it more expensive. Which is also why things were more expensive at our cafe, even though people didn't understand that. But I remembered that sometimes after the cafe, I would like have to go to the grocery store all the time, and I'd have to go to like 3 different grocery stores and like go to like Keiho to get certain things, and then go to Island Naturals to get the bread and other certain things, and then I'd have to go to that Safeway and get the like just get the turkey from Safeway. I feel like is I would go there for the boar's head turkey and then like a few other items. But I remember that Safeway, I was always just like so stressed when I went there. And so when I went back to Hawaii recently, I went into that Safeway
Yeah.
and I was just like, I let it all go. I was just like, I can just go to the Safeway and not be stressed.
Good. That makes me happy to hear that.
Yeah, yeah, I know.
Yeah, it makes me happy to hear that. But yeah, I mean, to your point, starting a cafe is a lot of responsibility, and you've got to really choose to take that responsibility on. And it's a long term thing because it takes years before you can get it to a place where you can get.
Yeah. Generally, what my advice is to anyone is I think I'm always somebody who is going to
Yeah.
support somebody and tell somebody to chase their dream because I think that to me, it's like, what is life if it isn't to do what you want to do, and go after those things? I'm very much somebody who's like, very much lived my life that way and I just take the consequences of I feel I've chased and done the things that I want to do. And so like if somebody's going to tell me they want to move to Hawaii and open a cafe, I'm going to tell you if that's what is in your heart and what you feel like you want to do, then like 100% you should go do it. But you should just be prepared for like what you're getting yourself into and just like be ready for it to be your life. I think that's like the big thing is like people think like they're going to be able to have their like regular normal life, maintain their social life, maintain their like doing all the other things they want to do with their life and run a business. And I just don't think that that's possible until you've, gotten your business off the ground and have like, multiple employees and stuff. So,
It will all turn out okay, just like it did with us.
yeah.
You'll learn from it, and just like we did.
I think like for me, when I think about leaving the cafe and leaving Hawaii and moving here, like my intention was to want to pursue screenwriting and like, that's part of why I moved to Los Angeles. And I'm still kind of doing that. I view it to me as something that is also another dream of mine, but it doesn't necessarily affect me whether or not if that happens. I feel really happy about and at peace with of making this decision to move here. One of my other intentions was that I really wanted to be closer to my family and that I really wanted to spend more time with them and be able to travel with them more. And like,
Wow.
my family is the closest it's ever been. I talk to my siblings every day. I talk to my parents every day. My family, we're all going to India at the end of this year together. It's like insane to me to
Wow.
think that like my entire family is going to be on a trip together. And when I reflect back on the growth I have gone through with my family in the past 3 years, with that being the intention, one of the intentions, right? Because that was what was hard for me was when, we lived in Hawaii and having all of my family and friends
Yeah.
come and say, it's so beautiful here. Like we want to come see you, but it's just such a far place to travel to. For my family and my friends. And I remember feeling that too. There is this other thing going on in addition to the cafe taking up all my time. I also live really far from everybody. And so that was something that I thought about a lot with wanting to just move. California was sort of my way of like still having a little bit of Hawaii, with the mountains and the ocean and being able to do the things I want to do here. But I think for me, I'm just so grateful that I've spent so much of the last 3 years really getting closer with my family and deepening that relationship and like resolving a lot of the issues, that we had. I mean, honestly, that is something I'm super grateful for you on because you really like guided me in the beginning of that journey. And
Yeah.
I don't know, it just makes me smile so much that I'm just like, I like talk to my family as much as I do now and that I see them as much as I do.
Gosh, that makes me so happy to hear. Um, that's worth the whole thing. Just that. That's beautiful.
Well, and my health and on that the fact that I'm alive. I think about that a lot too sometimes where I just want to share this and then I want you to answer the same question. But I do often think about when we were posed with the closing of the cafe or like deciding what we were going to do and wanting to sign on for 5 more years. I remember very vividly having a dream that I died. And it's so interesting because it was so specifically that I was 34 years old and that I was working in
Wow.
the cafe. And
Wow.
that I remember in the dream I fell over and I just like died in the cafe and I just died alone there. And so I feel like I very much have thought about that a lot over the last few years. And now I'm 34. So I feel when I turn 35 this year, I feel in my mind, I have this symbolic thing of like, I got that year that I didn't feel like I was going to get because I felt like the path I was going down with the cafe and that I saw myself going down if I had stayed for 5 more years is my physical pain was getting so bad, right? And I was mentally so in such a bad place that I was like afraid I would be reaching the end of my life. And I feel like I've taken that back.
Yeah.
And that again is where I just like don't regret anything because, even though it sucked that we weren't able to sell the cafe, like that was a whole other experience, right? And process we went through with trying to sell the cafe. I'm ultimately really glad that everything happened the way it happened, even though it sucks to be in debt and have debt. I would still rather have debt and have my life and have my
Yeah.
family and have everything that I have now than not.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel the same way. No regrets. Journey led me here for a reason. And past 3 years have been a source of
Yeah.
tremendous growth for me. It's led me further into music, deeper into transformation coaching, and it's brought me a lot of joy. I'm just grateful, for all of it and excited about the future. Just really happy to do this episode with you. Thank you so much.
No, thank you for agreeing to it. It's been fun to just like talk about everything. And I do think that we've had an interesting experience.
There's so much experience in it. We were living.
Yeah. I just hope that maybe some people will like learn something from what we learned and that it'll be useful for them or inspire them to want to do the things that they want to do.
Yes.
Oh, the other thing I wanted to mention that I forgot to mention was that um, my brother Paul designed our logo, and I feel like that's something too that always made me so happy was how cute the logo was and how much I do feel it really embodies both the cafe but also us. I think that's something that people have said to me a lot and that I thought about a lot too, just being back in Hawaii, was like we were just such genuinely happy, positive people. And I feel we really radiated that through the cafe, right? And I do feel a little bit excited about like I haven't really been on social media lately. I've been taking
Sure.
a break from Instagram and especially everything going on in the world right now. I've been trying to figure out like my relationship to social media. And I think something that I enjoy about the Happy Heart Kona Instagram is the idea of logging back into that and just sort of like sharing some of the photos I have on my phone from the cafe, writing little stories like this, and, just hoping that maybe people will throw dollars my way to put towards the debt with that. But yeah, I feel like there are so many fun, just like happy memories, like
Yes.
I was also always so proud of you for your granola and like when you designed the packages for the
Yeah.
granola.
Love the fact that it was like 5 or 7 grams of sugar a serving, something like that. Yeah, I figured out how to get it, 'cause beyond a certain point, it doesn't work, right? And it dries it out, so
Good. I think I texted you this, but I do think it's so funny and random that I literally think the next building over, Sarah lives next to me, who was our gluten-free customer who
oh my
loved
god.
your granola. And she
She's
actually, that was like one of the reasons I asked you if you wouldn't mind me like sharing how to make it and stuff, was because she asked me. She was like, "Do you still make the granola?" I was like, I should just give her the recipe. We were walking down the
yeah.
street and we kept seeing each other and I kept thinking like, I think I know this girl. Like I literally think I remember, like she was like,
Sure,
a customer at the farmer's market. And then at some point
sure.
we went to this event at some coffee shop here and then Sarah was there and she was like, "We know each other, right?" And I was like, "Did you used to live in
Yeah.
Kona?" And then she said, "Yeah." And I was like, "Oh my God." Like, and then she realized, like, "Oh, you used to own the cafe and you were at the farmer's market." Yeah, it is just kind of funny to have all those like random little connections with uh Hawaii still. And but I also feel really excited for you. I think I can see you moving back there and living there and I can see the island life as your future. Well, thanks for making the time to chat with me on this.
Thank you. Wanted to say besides, hi everyone watching this, and, I miss you all.
Yeah, I'm sure we will both be back on the islands at different times. So we'll definitely say hello when we
Yeah.
can as we see people. And thank you for listening. This has been an episode of the Happy Heart podcast. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to support helping me pay off my debt from the cafe, you can Venmo at happyheart-kona. If you want to pre-order the recipe book that will be launching in May 2025, please Venmo $10 to happyheart-kona and put your email in the comments so that I know where to send the recipe book when it's available. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great rest of your day. Aloha.